Iconic fashion designer Giorgio Armani has died at the age of 91, leaving behind not only a global fashion empire but also a cultural legacy that has shaped the way the world thinks about elegance, sophistication, and power dressing. The announcement from his fashion house came on Thursday with a carefully worded statement that reflected both his personal dedication and the monumental impact of his work. According to the statement, Armani passed away peacefully, surrounded by loved ones, a phrase that carries with it a sense of closure, but also the quiet strength that characterized his long life and career. What stood out in the announcement was not just the fact of his death, but the detail that he had been working until his final days, dedicating himself to the company, the collections, and the many ongoing and future projects. This alone speaks volumes about who Giorgio Armani was, a man who lived for his work, who poured his creativity and discipline into every design, and who, even in his 90s, remained not an icon of the past, but a living presence in the future of fashion. His passing came after he missed Milan Fashion Week for the first time in 50 years. A poignant reminder of how closely his name and his identity were tied to the heart of Italian and global style. Armani was born on July 11, 1934, in Piacenza, a small city in northern Italy that would hardly have seemed like the starting point of one of the most remarkable fashion journeys of the 20th century. His childhood was marked by hardship, as he grew up in the shadow of World War II. Like many Italians of his generation, he experienced not just the instability and scarcity that war brought, but also its direct dangers. As a child, he suffered burns after discovering and accidentally triggering an unexploded artillery shell, a moment that left both physical and emotional scars. This detail of his biography, often mentioned in passing, reveals much about the resilience and perseverance that defined him throughout his life. For a boy who endured such trauma, to later become a symbol of refined elegance is a testament to how deeply he believed in beauty, discipline, and the power of reinvention. Before fashion came into the picture, Armani's path seemed destined for something entirely different. He first studied medicine, enrolling in the University of Milan to pursue a career as a doctor. The choice reflected both the aspirations of his family and the practical mindset of a young man in post-war Italy, where stability and respectability mattered more than creative dreams. However, during his studies, Armani began to realize that his heart was not fully in medicine. After a stint in the Italian army, where he served his mandatory military duty, he began to question what kind of life he truly wanted to live. It was during this period of transition that fate intervened, steering him toward the world of fashion almost by accident. Armani's entry into the fashion world was humble. It began as a clerk at La Rinascente, a department store in Milan. There, surrounded by fabrics, colors, and the rhythms of everyday shopping life, he found himself drawn to the world of textiles. He started learning about how fabrics draped, how colors influenced mood, and how style could transform the ordinary into something extraordinary. This was not a glamorous entry, but a practical apprenticeship in the details of clothing, and it laid the foundation for everything he would later accomplish. Armani developed an eye for texture, proportion, and quality that would later define his brand. By the 1960s, Armani had progressed enough to attract attention from the established fashion world. He joined the menswear division at Nino Cerruti, where he honed his craft as a designer. Working at Cerruti exposed him to the rigorous demands of tailoring, and it was here that he first began to experiment with the ideas that would later revolutionize menswear. He was fascinated by the interplay between structure and freedom, by the idea that clothing could be simultaneously comfortable and authoritative. Armani stripped away the rigidity of traditional suits, softening them, lightening them, and making them more fluid, a philosophy that would eventually become his trademark. During this period, he met Sergio Galati, a talented architectural draftsman who would become both his romantic partner and his professional collaborator. Galati recognized Armani's genius and encouraged him to push forward, to take risks. and to imagine himself not just as a designer working under someone else's label, but as the creator of his own. Armani entered into a period of extensive freelancing, designing for other fashion houses, and steadily building his reputation. The combination of Armani's quiet, disciplined artistry and Galato's dynamic entrepreneurial spirit proved to be unstoppable. In 1975, Armani and Galati founded Giorgio Armani's PA, the company that would become synonymous with understated elegance. The timing could not have been more perfect. The world was ready for a new vision of fashion, one that balanced tradition with modernity, authority with relaxation, and luxury with accessibility. Armani's focus at the start was on men's ready-to-wear clothing, but his approach immediately set him apart. He was not interested in flamboyance or exaggeration. He was interested in creating clothing that allowed the wearer to exude confidence effortlessly. Armani understood that power and style did not need to shout. They could whisper and still command attention. Throughout the 1980s, Armani's brand exploded into the global consciousness. Its designs gained international recognition, thanks in Part 2, Hollywood. When Richard Gere wore Armani in the 1980 film American Gigolo, audiences around the world were captivated by the sleek lines, the sensual fabrics, and the aura of sophistication. The film was more than entertainment, it was an advertisement for Armani's vision, and it worked brilliantly. Armani's suits became known as power suits, a term that entered the cultural lexicon to describe clothing that conferred authority, confidence, and control. Executives, actors, politicians, and anyone seeking to project an image of modern power began turning to Armani. What made his suits revolutionary was not just their style, but their philosophy. Armani deconstructed the traditional male suit, removing heavy padding, stiff linings, and unnecessary embellishments. He created jackets that draped naturally, trousers that flowed, and ensembles that looked sharp without feeling restrictive. This was more than a change in clothing. It was a cultural shift. It's at a time when society was questioning authority and redefining roles. Armani offered a new uniform for the modern man, one that signaled both professionalism and individuality. His influence extended far beyond the runway. By the mid-1980s, Armani had become a household name. His brand's logo, that minimalist eagle, became a global symbol of aspiration. He expanded into women's wear, fragrances, accessories, and even interior design. The Armani empire grew into multiple lines: Emporio Armani, Armani Exchange, Armani Jeans Age, tailored to different audiences, but all carrying the same essence of sleek sophistication. Unlike many designers who thrived on chaos and scandal, Armani built his empire with discipline and focus. He was known for his meticulous attention to detail, for running his company with a firm hand, and for ensuring that his brand remained consistent across every product. So ubiquitous was his brand that in 1986, the British synth-pop group Pet Shop Boys referenced him in their song Paninaro, a track that poked fun at designer label obsession. The line Armani, Armani, captured just how deeply embedded he had become in popular culture. To be name-checked in a pop song was not only a sign of fame, but of cultural dominance. Armani was no longer just a fashion designer. He was a symbol, a shorthand for luxury and refinement.